Nobody expected her to look away. That was the first thought that crossed my mind the night I met Claire Dawson. The ballroom of the Lakeshore Grand Hotel shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers worth more than most family homes, and every conversation seemed carefully rehearsed, every smile polished for the cameras. Chicago's most influential people filled the room, moving between marble columns and white linen tables, while a jazz quartet played softly beneath the glow of golden lights. Then Vincent Moretti arrived. The room felt it before it saw it. Conversations slowed. Waiters straightened their posture. Executives adjusted their jackets. Even the mayor paused in the middle of a sentence. Power has a sound. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Vincent crossed the ballroom with the calm confidence of a man accustomed to attention. He did not demand it. He simply received it. At 6 feet 3 inches tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, he moved through the crowd while people stepped aside without being asked. Some offered nervous smiles. Others lowered their eyes. Everyone seemed aware of who he was. Everyone except one woman. Claire Dawson stood near an architectural model displayed beside the charity stage. She was explaining a community housing project to a small group of donors. Her dark brown hair rested neatly on her shoulders. A navy blue dress replaced the designer gowns worn by most guests. Nothing about her appearance demanded attention. Yet somehow she seemed more noticeable than anyone else in the room. She spoke with quiet confidence, pointing toward miniature buildings and discussing affordable housing, as though she had forgotten she was surrounded by millionaires. Then it happened. A server carrying a tray changed direction unexpectedly. Claire stepped backward. Vincent stepped forward. They collided. A champagne glass tilted dangerously before Claire caught it with surprising speed. Several nearby guests gasped. The room seemed to freeze for a second. Claire looked up. Vincent looked down. Every person watching expected the same reaction. Shock, apology, recognition, fear. Instead, Claire simply smiled politely. "Sorry about that," she said. Not because she knew who he was. Because she thought she had bumped into another guest. Vincent stared at her. She adjusted the architectural plans in her hands. "Good catch," she added, glancing at the rescued champagne. Then she turned back toward her presentation. That was it. No widened eyes. No nervous laughter. No attempt to impress him. No interest whatsoever. Vincent remained standing there for several seconds. The people around him appeared confused. One businessman nearly dropped his drink. A woman beside the stage looked as though she had forgotten how to breathe. Claire continued explaining floor plans, construction costs, and family housing needs, completely unaware that half the room was watching her. For the first time all evening, Vincent was not looking at financial reports, politicians, or influential investors. He was looking at Claire Dawson. There was something unusual about a person who treated power like background noise. Throughout the rest of the event, Vincent found himself noticing her repeatedly. The way she listened before speaking. The way she thanked every volunteer by name. The way she focused on helping people rather than impressing them. She seemed entirely untouched by the invisible pressure that shaped everyone else's behavior. And somewhere between the opening speeches and the charity auction, Vincent Moretti experienced something he had not felt in years. Curiosity. Because in a room full of people trying to get his attention, the only person who truly captured it was the woman who never tried. The following morning, the city was already awake, buzzing with the routines of people hurrying to work, the sounds of car horns and footsteps blending into a familiar urban symphony. Claire Dawson stepped outside her modest apartment, the cool spring air brushing against her face as she adjusted her navy blue blazer, straightened the papers she held, and began walking toward the nearby community center where she spent most of her weekdays coordinating projects and meetings, her mind focused on the schedules, volunteers, and upcoming presentations. The streets were lined with blooming trees and the occasional newspaper stand, children skipping along the sidewalks, and neighbors exchanging quick greetings, yet Claire's attention remained on her responsibilities, ensuring everything ran smoothly, her calm determination making her movements precise and efficient. She entered the community center, greeted the staff and volunteers with a warm but professional smile, checking off tasks on her clipboard, coordinating transportation for materials, and reviewing the day's agenda, every detail carefully considered to avoid errors or delays, embodying a sense of leadership without dominating. commanding respect through her diligence and thoughtful presence. Meanwhile, outside in a quiet corner of the parking lot, Vincent Moretti observed the building from a distance, dressed in a casual yet impeccably fitted jacket and dark jeans. His posture relaxed but attentive, the sunlight glinting subtly off his watch, indicating an early start to his day, a calculated presence without drawing unnecessary attention. He noticed Claire exiting the building briefly to speak with a delivery driver, her hair catching the light, her focused expression unbroken by the minor distractions of the morning, and something about the way she conducted herself sparked interest in him, an unusual curiosity that he could not ignore, compelling him to remain in the vicinity, monitoring the flow of activities, noting her interactions with volunteers, the way she addressed questions politely yet assertively, her ability to maintain order with calm efficiency, each gesture revealing a character both competent and grounded. As the morning progressed, Claire moved between rooms, setting up meeting spaces, coordinating volunteers, and welcoming community members, her presence a stabilizing force in the organized chaos of the center, while Vincent remained a silent observer outside, noting every detail, respecting her space, intrigued by her independence and composed demeanor. Eventually, a young child approached Claire, holding a small box with community donations, and she crouched to accept it with genuine encouragement and kind words, her voice warm yet firm, guiding the child to place the items in the appropriate area, ensuring each contribution was valued and accounted for. Vincent watched this interaction, a rare, subtle smile forming as he recognized her ability to blend leadership, compassion, and meticulous organization effortlessly, each action reinforcing the impression she had made at the ballroom the previous evening. Yet today, removed from grandeur and social expectation, her authenticity shone even brighter, confirming to him that this was a person defined by substance and character, someone whose presence naturally commanded respect without the aid of wealth or power, an insight that piqued both his admiration and curiosity, leaving him contemplating how to approach someone so unexpectedly captivating in the simplicity of her daily world. The most powerful man in the room was about to hear a word he was not used to hearing. 3 nights after the charity gala, another high-profile event brought Chicago's elite together beneath the glittering lights of a historic downtown ballroom, the atmosphere elegant and carefully controlled, every guest aware of who was present and who mattered, and once again Vincent Moretti stood at the center of attention without making any effort to claim it. Conversations shifted around him like tides around a ship. Executives waited for opportunities to greet him. Investors watched for a chance to be noticed, and politicians carefully measured every word they spoke in his presence. Yet Vincent's attention was somewhere else entirely, his eyes occasionally searching the crowd until he finally found Claire Dawson near a display showcasing future community development projects. She stood exactly as she always seemed to stand, calm, focused, and completely uninterested in social games, discussing housing plans with local organizers while balancing a folder beneath one arm. The sight of her immediately captured his attention, not because she was trying to attract it, but because she never did, and that difference continued to intrigue him more than he wanted to admit. Throughout the evening he found himself observing her from across the room, noticing the way she listened carefully before speaking, the way she treated a volunteer with the same respect she offered a major donor, and the way she seemed entirely unaffected by the hierarchy that shaped everyone else's behavior. Eventually several influential guests gathered near Vincent, discussing investments in city projects, but even while participating in the conversation, part of his attention remained fixed on Claire, until finally he made a decision that surprised even himself. Setting down his drink, he crossed the ballroom toward her, and almost immediately people began noticing. Conversations softened, eyes followed his movement, and curiosity spread through the room. Because Vincent Moretti rarely pursued anyone's attention, people usually came to him. Claire was reviewing a presentation folder when she sensed someone approaching and looked up, her expression remaining polite and composed as Vincent stopped beside her. For a brief moment neither spoke, the surrounding noise seeming to fade into the background. Then Vincent offered a small smile and asked if she would join him for dinner sometime the following week. The invitation was simple, respectful, and direct, yet its impact traveled through the room like a wave. Nearby conversations stopped entirely, several guests turned toward them, and even those pretending not to watch were suddenly listening. Claire immediately understood what was happening around her. She noticed the attention, the anticipation, and the assumptions being made by everyone present. But instead of appearing nervous, she simply held his gaze thoughtfully, considering the question for a moment. Vincent remained calm, confident that whatever answer came would be genuine, because that was the one quality he had come to appreciate most about her. Then Claire smiled warmly and spoke with complete sincerity, explaining that she appreciated the invitation and respected the gesture, but her schedule and priorities left little room for personal dinners, especially with people she barely knew. Her tone remained kind, her words respectful, and yet her answer was unmistakably clear. She was saying no. And in that instant the entire ballroom seemed to stop breathing, because nobody could remember the last time someone had declined Vincent Moretti in public. But what shocked Vincent most was not the rejection itself. It was the realization that for the first time in years, he respected someone more because they had refused him. The city expected a storm. Instead it got silence. By sunrise the next morning, rumors had already spread across Chicago faster than any official news report could travel, whispered inside law offices, discussed over expensive breakfasts, repeated in corporate boardrooms and private clubs, all centered around a single unbelievable moment from the previous night's gala. Claire Dawson had declined Vincent Moretti in front of hundreds of witnesses, and now everyone seemed to be waiting for the consequences. Because in a city built on influence and reputation, people assumed powerful men always demanded a response when they were denied something they wanted. Yet as the hours passed, nothing happened. Vincent attended scheduled meetings, reviewed contracts, and handled business exactly as he always did. There were no angry phone calls, no public statements, no attempts to embarrass Claire, and somehow that only increased the fascination surrounding the story. Meanwhile, Claire returned to her normal routine at the community development office, arriving shortly after 8 o'clock with a coffee in one hand and project plans in the other, determined not to allow gossip to distract her from work. But avoiding the attention proved impossible. Volunteers exchanged curious glances when she entered the building. Donors suddenly seemed eager to schedule meetings, and even local reporters began calling the office requesting interviews, all because she had done something no one expected. Claire politely declined every attempt to discuss the gala, redirecting conversations back toward affordable housing projects and community funding efforts, refusing to let herself become part of a story she never wanted to create. Yet despite her efforts, she could feel the city's curiosity growing around her. Later that afternoon she stepped outside for fresh air and found herself standing beneath a row of maple trees near the center's entrance, the spring breeze carrying the distant sounds of traffic through the neighborhood. For a moment she allowed herself to breathe and clear her thoughts, wondering why a simple answer had become such a major event, because from her perspective nothing extraordinary had happened. Someone had extended an invitation, and she had politely declined, that was all. But across the city Vincent found himself replaying the conversation in his mind with surprising frequency, not because he felt insulted, but because he felt challenged in a way he had never experienced before. Claire had not refused him to gain attention, she had not tried to make a statement, and she certainly had not acted out of fear. She had simply been honest, and honesty had become a surprisingly rare quality in his world. Later that evening Vincent sat alone in his office overlooking the Chicago skyline, the city lights stretching endlessly beyond the glass windows while rain clouds gathered on the horizon. Reports and business proposals remained untouched on his desk as his thoughts drifted elsewhere. He found himself wondering what motivated Claire, what kind of person devoted her life to helping strangers while asking for so little in return, and why her opinion suddenly mattered more than the approval of people who spent years trying to impress him. For the first time in a very long while, Vincent was not interested in controlling an outcome. He was interested in understanding someone, and perhaps that realization surprised him more than the rejection itself, because power had always given him access, influence had always opened doors, but neither could explain Claire Dawson, and somewhere between curiosity and admiration, a new question quietly began taking shape inside his mind, not how to win her attention, but whether he was the kind of man who could ever truly earn her respect. The morning sun filtered softly through the blinds, casting warm lines across the living room where Claire Dawson sat at her small wooden desk, reviewing plans for the new community center she had been organizing for months. The phone on the side table rang persistently, but she ignored it, focused entirely on the paperwork and the budget spreadsheets that required her attention. Every so often she glanced out the window to see the neighborhood slowly coming alive with children running to the school bus and neighbors greeting one another. The simple rhythm of daily life grounding her in a world far removed from the intense attention she had received the night before. Meanwhile Vincent Moretti, dressed in a sharply tailored gray suit that reflected the early sunlight, walked through the streets with a purposeful stride, his mind occupied by thoughts of Claire and her remarkable composure. Despite knowing that he could make anything happen with a single call or decision, he found himself wondering how someone like her could remain unaffected by the power and influence he wielded. As the day progressed, Claire moved from her office to visit a nearby shelter she had been helping renovate, greeting volunteers and residents with genuine warmth, carefully balancing her words and actions to ensure everyone felt valued and supported. Her interaction with the children there reminded her why she devoted so much energy to the community. She noticed a boy struggling to tie his shoes and knelt beside him patiently, the moment simple yet meaningful, conveying care without a word. At the same time, Vincent visited one of his offices across town, making decisions on business matters that would affect hundreds, yet his thoughts kept drifting to Claire, replaying her expressions, the quiet confidence with which she managed herself in public and in private. He recalled the subtle defiance in her eyes, the moment at the gala where she had calmly refused his attention without hesitation. Throughout the afternoon, messages arrived for both Claire and Vincent, from colleagues, neighbors, and associates, each message carrying the undertone of the event from the night before. Yet neither acted on them immediately, preferring to process the day in real time. Later in the afternoon, Claire returned to the community center to lead a planning session, coordinating efforts for fundraising and volunteer assignments. Vincent, unannounced but observant, watched her manage the group with ease, noting how she inspired respect. Without commanding authority, the genuine admiration she elicited from others began to challenge his assumptions about influence and power. By evening, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city. Both Claire and Vincent found themselves pausing in their respective spaces, reflecting on the events and the unexpected connection that had begun to form between them, a silent acknowledgement that the day's experiences had altered something fundamental, creating a quiet, compelling tension that neither could ignore. A subtle but profound shift, leaving both to wonder what might unfold as their paths continued to intersect, and how respect, integrity, and unexpected challenges could redefine the rules of engagement between two very different lives. Sometimes the hardest choice is doing nothing when you finally have the power to do everything. A week after the gala, Claire Dawson arrived at the community development office earlier than usual and immediately sensed something was wrong. The normally energetic atmosphere felt subdued, conversations were quieter, and several members of her team avoided eye contact as she entered the conference room. A thick folder waited on the center of the table beside a stack of financial reports, and before anyone needed to explain, Claire understood that a problem had arrived. The largest private donor supporting the East Harbor Community Center project had unexpectedly withdrawn funding, leaving a significant gap in the budget only months before construction was scheduled to begin. The announcement spread through the room like cold air. Volunteers exchanged worried looks, project coordinators began discussing alternatives, and several board members quietly questioned whether the project could continue at all. But Claire remained calm, reviewing every document carefully, asking thoughtful questions and refusing to allow panic to replace clear thinking. Throughout the day she met with contractors, reviewed revised budgets, and explored every possible solution, determined to protect the project without compromising the principles it had been built upon. Meanwhile, across the city, Vincent Moretti received the same information before lunchtime. One of his associates mentioned the funding crisis during a routine meeting, expecting little reaction, but Vincent immediately recognized the name of the project, and for the rest of the discussion his attention remained divided, because solving the problem would be effortless for him. A single signature could replace every lost dollar, construction could continue uninterrupted, and nobody involved would ever need to worry again. Yet he also knew Claire well enough to understand that simply arriving with a solution would likely achieve the opposite of what he wanted. She valued independence too much to accept help that came attached to influence, and for the first time in his life, Vincent found himself confronting a challenge that could not be solved through power alone. Later that evening he drove past the construction site without stopping, watching workers secure equipment before leaving for the night. Unfinished steel frames stretched toward the darkening sky while temporary lights illuminated the partially completed structure. It represented everything Claire cared about, a place designed to provide opportunity, education, and support for families who needed it most. And standing there inside his car, Vincent realized something that surprised him. He wanted the project to succeed not because it would impress Claire, but because he genuinely believed in what she was building. At the same time, Claire remained inside her office long after sunset, reviewing numbers beneath the glow of a desk lamp while rain tapped softly against the windows. Exhaustion settled across her shoulders, but determination remained stronger. Several colleagues suggested reaching out to influential donors, others recommended approaching powerful business leaders throughout the city, yet Claire declined every suggestion that required sacrificing control of the project's mission, because she had spent years protecting community programs from becoming publicity opportunities for people seeking recognition, and she refused to abandon those values now. As midnight approached, she finally gathered her papers and prepared to leave, unaware that across the city another person sat awake thinking about the same problem, struggling with a decision he had never faced before, because Vincent Moretti could save everything she had built, but for perhaps the first time in his life, he cared more about earning her respect than exercising his power. Claire Dawson paced slowly along the narrow hall of the community center, her hands lightly brushing over the worn wooden railing, the soft hum of fluorescent lights above providing a steady backdrop to the tension settling in the air. She had spent the entire day coordinating volunteers, reviewing paperwork, and responding to calls from concerned parents who had heard rumors of potential budget cuts. Yet despite the growing unease, she maintained her composed demeanor, determined to show confidence and resilience. Meanwhile, Vincent Moretti watched the same building from across the street, his black luxury sedan parked inconspicuously under the shadow of an oak tree, the rain that had begun in the afternoon now falling steadily, beads of water collecting on the car's hood. He studied the center with an intensity that belied his composed exterior, analyzing every entrance, every window, imagining ways to provide the necessary support without making Claire feel undermined. He admired her dedication, the way she inspired loyalty and trust in the volunteers who moved purposefully around the center, each carrying out tasks with a sense of purpose instilled by her presence. As the day turned into early evening, Claire led a small team through a final inspection of the storage rooms, noting the precise placement of materials, the inventory list secured in her folder, and how the lighting allowed for safety without causing shadows that could create confusion. She paused at the doorway of the main hall, glancing out the large windows where the sky had darkened to a deep indigo, the reflection of the room showing her focused expression. Unaware that Vincent's gaze followed every movement, he understood that earning her trust would require patience and subtlety, not grand gestures or public declarations. As the volunteers gathered to pack up for the night, Claire ensured every detail was addressed, confirming that all equipment was safely stored and communications were sent to the city council to reaffirm commitment to the project. She spoke briefly to each person, offering gratitude and encouragement, her voice calm yet firm, a presence that commanded respect without intimidation. Meanwhile, Vincent exited his car, maintaining distance but moving closer to ensure he could be of assistance without intruding. He observed how Claire handled the situation with skill and integrity, noting the careful balance between authority and empathy, understanding that this balance was precisely why the project thrived despite limited resources. As twilight settled and the rain continued to fall, the streets glistened with reflections of streetlights and passing cars. The quiet tension between the two individuals existed without confrontation, an unspoken connection forming through mutual respect and shared concern for the community's well-being. Vincent made a decision to wait, knowing that timing and observation were more powerful than immediate intervention, and Claire, unaware of the figure across the street, completed her rounds, locking doors and switching off lights, the building standing quietly behind her, a testament to dedication and resilience, both prepared to navigate the challenges ahead, each motivated by different reasons but aligned in purpose, their paths converging subtly, not through force but through a careful interplay of presence, patience, and understanding, the city around them alive with activity yet seemingly paused for this quiet, profound moment of anticipation and mutual regard, the night wrapping around them as they each continued their separate tasks. Yet the story of support, vigilance, and understated connection continued to unfold. The evening air was crisp as Claire Dawson exited the community center, the sound of her heels clicking against the wet pavement harmonizing with the distant hum of the city. She paused briefly to adjust her coat against the chill, her mind replaying the day's events, the challenges faced and the small victories achieved, unaware that Vincent Moretti had followed discreetly at a distance, observing her every movement with careful attention, his dark suit blending with the shadows under the streetlights. He admired her determination, The way she engaged with volunteers and children alike, each interaction demonstrating a balance of firmness and warmth that few could emulate. As Claire reached her car, she noticed a small envelope tucked under the windshield wiper, the handwriting unfamiliar yet deliberate. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands, the crisp paper revealing a note of encouragement and an offer to assist with the community programs in the coming weeks. Her eyes widened slightly, a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism crossing her features. Vincent watched as she read the note, noting the subtle shift in her posture, the softening of her gaze. He remained silent, understanding that actions often spoke louder than words, the city lights reflecting in the puddles along the street, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that mirrored the complexity of the moment. As she tucked the envelope into her bag, Claire considered the possibilities, the potential for collaboration that could elevate the program she had worked so tirelessly to build. She glanced around, sensing rather than seeing Vincent nearby, and a quiet understanding formed between them, a mutual recognition of shared goals and respect. As the night deepened, the streets grew quieter, leaving the two of them connected not through confrontation but through the silent acknowledgement of each other's presence and intentions. Claire continued walking toward her car, each step measured and deliberate, aware that her actions carried weight and influence, while Vincent adjusted his position to remain just beyond the periphery, respecting her space yet ensuring readiness to offer support if needed. The narrative of the evening unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, each movement intentional, each glance meaningful, as the wind rustled through the trees lining the street, carrying with it the promise of new opportunities and the anticipation of what could emerge from a partnership founded on trust, patience, and mutual admiration. Claire reached the driver's side, opened the door and paused for a moment, reflecting on the day, the challenges overcome, and the unknowns that lay ahead. Vincent lingered, his presence a steady reassurance, both aware that the future held potential and that the connection between them, though unspoken, was significant, a delicate thread weaving through the night, linking dedication, responsibility, and the quiet thrill of possibilities yet to be realized. The city around them a living backdrop, alive with muted sounds and shifting lights framing this pivotal chapter in their intertwined journey. As the night embraced them, the sense of anticipation and readiness to face tomorrow's endeavors settled in, both poised to act with integrity, purpose, and shared understanding. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the community center, casting long golden beams across the polished wooden floors as Claire Dawson adjusted the stack of paper she carried, her mind racing with the tasks ahead and the lingering sense of connection she had felt the night before with Vincent Moretti. She could still sense his quiet presence and unwavering attention, a comforting reminder that her efforts were recognized beyond the surface. As she stepped into the bustling room, children laughing and volunteers preparing materials, the atmosphere buzzed with energy and purpose, yet beneath it, an undercurrent of anticipation seemed to hang in the air, a subtle acknowledgement of the changes that had begun to ripple through her life since the encounter with Vincent. Each child that approached her, seeking guidance or a smile, reminded her of the responsibility she carried and the trust placed in her. She responded with warmth, her expressions gentle yet firm, balance that resonated with everyone present. Across the room, Vincent observed from a discreet corner, noting the way her eyes lit up when speaking to the children, the careful gestures of encouragement, and the subtle interactions with volunteers that revealed her leadership and empathy. He admired the resilience she displayed, understanding that such qualities were rare and precious. He approached slowly, ensuring not to disrupt the harmony of the scene. And when their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement passed between them, a shared understanding of the commitment and trust that had been established. As the morning progressed, Claire led a small activity, her voice calm and confident, guiding the children through an exercise that encouraged creativity and teamwork. Vincent watched, occasionally offering a supportive gesture to reinforce the structure, the synergy between them evident even without overt interaction. The room filled with the soft sounds of engagement, laughter, and focused conversation, each moment reinforcing the bond and mutual respect that had quietly formed. As lunch approached, Claire and Vincent stepped outside for a brief conversation, the warm breeze carrying the sounds of the neighborhood. They discussed future plans for community initiatives, the possibilities unfolding with each careful suggestion, their dialogue measured yet open, allowing for collaboration and thoughtful consideration. As the sun reached its zenith, the center's activities continued smoothly, with Claire and Vincent seamlessly integrating their efforts to foster an environment of encouragement and growth. The afternoon sun reflecting off windows, casting patterns of light and shadow that mirrored the intricate dance of coordination and support between them. By the end of the day, Claire felt a profound sense of accomplishment and anticipation for the work ahead. The children waved goodbye, volunteers expressed gratitude, and Vincent offered a reassuring presence, their shared vision for the community clearer than ever. The day concluding with the understanding that the connection between them, built on trust, respect, and quiet admiration, would continue to guide and influence their endeavors, marking the beginning of a partnership founded on mutual dedication and the promise of meaningful impact. As they left the center together, the streets bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, each step forward a continuation of the journey, united in purpose and anticipation for the future.